topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good afternoon. Hi, Dallas, Fort Worth. I am so glad to be doing the show today in the Metroplex area, my hometown, even though I live in Florida now. I am your host for the next hour. My name is Steve-O. Our first guest always makes for a great show. Our first guest is attorney Mark Underwood. He's a personal injury attorney in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's funny, we got a call from Oklahoma, Edmond, Oklahoma, and they're going to be listening to the show today, and they are going to probably be calling Mark's office this week or the beginning of next to talk about their situation. Let me say hi to this great personal injury attorney, Mark Underwood. Good afternoon, Mark.
Good afternoon, Steve. How's it going?
Well, we have had so much rain here in Florida, but I got to tell you, it was so cool. We are starting to get calls from southern Oklahoma, North Texas. For your show, we even got someone called from Galveston, and they wanted to know, which I was just getting ready to ask you. Yeah, and I've asked you before, I guess, one of those dense times, but a listener wanted to know if you do property damage claims.
Well, it depends on how they define a property damage claim. So a property damage claim could be, a neighbor drove through your yard on a four-wheeler, tore up your yard, and you want them to pay for the damage that they did to your yard. It also could be a hail claim where your house has sustained hail damage in a big storm, like the big storms we've had recently. I don't know if you saw some of the size of the hailstones in some of those, but they're massive. It could be that your person's home sustained hail damage and they want to make a claim on their homeowner's insurance, and their homeowner's insurance has refused to pay for it. So, the best thing I can do is tell them to give us a call at 844-UNDERWOOD, which is 844-863-3796. That's 844-UNDERWOOD, toll free. And we'll listen to them and see if they
did that. Actually, Mark, he has a business, and the restaurant next door flooded out, and it went into his business, and he's been having trouble with the insurance company. And I know you handle that, so I gave him your phone number, and you should be getting a call. He's out of town. He was going to be back the end of this week, beginning of next. But you do handle cases like that. Is that right?
Absolutely. That's an insurance claim, potentially an insurance bad faith claim. We can absolutely help them out with that.
Well, the one thing I've seen, Mark, is, and you also have an office is it West Virginia?
West Virginia it is.
Yeah, you also have an office there. But because we are getting so many calls now, they're new people who found our show by mistake, people who saw the advertising about your show. So let's start from scratch. Tell people about your background and about your practice.
So my name is Mark Underwood, and I've been practicing for 33 long years at this point. Graduated from law school in 1989, practiced in downtown Los Angeles for a while, then moved home to West Virginia, ran for office down there, got elected to the state legislature for a term, Opened my own practice in West Virginia, started building a practice there. And then in 2013, a fertilizer plant blew up in the town of West Texas, killing about 15 people and injuring about 400 others. And we ended up opening an office in the town of West Texas and signed up about 182 clients and got involved with the case at that point and decided we better open a full-time office in Texas. We opened it in McKinney, which is where my wife's from, and we've been running our office here in McKinney ever since then.
Well, I bet I wouldn't even recognize McKinney now. I bet it's grown so much. But we're really glad to have you, Mark. And we're going to change up the way we're going to do your show because we get so many emails and texts that we are going to let our listeners, our viewers, ask the questions. And you have no idea what the questions are. So we're going to really see how good you are, Mark. Are you ready to get started?
I feel almost like I'm on the dating game.
Very good. Very good. Okay, we're going to start off with Jack in Fort Worth. He wants to know, what should I do if I fall and injure myself at someone else's property or at a business?
Okay, well, the first thing you need to do is document the condition that caused you to fall. And well, what does document mean? Start taking some pictures. We know we all have these phones nowadays.
Yeah.
As soon as you're able to get your wits about you, take pictures, because when it comes to a trip and fall or a slip and fall, what you have to prove in most states is, number one, that there's an unreasonably dangerous condition that exists on the property. Number two, that the defendant had notice of that unreasonably dangerous condition. And there are two ways to prove notice. The first is what's called first is called actual notice. The second is called constructive notice. Actual notice is, the person comes running up to you after you fell and said, I've been meaning to fix that big hole in my front yard for the last 6 months. I just haven't gotten around to it. So they actually knew it was there. Or constructive notice, which means they should have known it was there. The unreasonably dangerous condition existed for such a long period of time that the defendant should have known it was there. So, for example, again, a hole in the front yard, you can look at it. It's been there for days, weeks, or months, and they haven't fixed it. So, if you were to apply that to like a grocery store or shopping center, we see a lot of very serious injuries coming out of grocery stores and shopping centers. Was the spill there? Was it enough of a spill to be an unreasonably dangerous condition? Number two, did the defendant have notice of it? That's either actual notice. Person came running up with a mop saying, I was going to clean that up an hour ago and I didn't clean it up. Or, not actual notice, but constructive notice, which is they came running up and said, that's been down there for an hour. So that's what you have to prove. And then, of course, you have to prove damages. And typically on trip and fall and slip and fall cases, you're not going to be able to recover if it's just some bruising and maybe a very small strain or sprain. Typically, they will fight you very hard if you don't have a very significant verifiable injury like a broken bone or something that requires some surgery.
Mark, I got to tell everybody, because we get calls like this once in a while from someone who's not hurt, but from somebody who wants information. So I get this call, and they actually live in Allen, Texas.
Right down the street.
Yeah, and they, first of all, he said your show is really good, because he was talking about personal injury, and he was just very complimentary. And then he went into, because you deal in injuries, then he went into, have you heard anything happening legal-wise from the shooting at the mall?
I have not heard anything legal-wise. I have a few friends that got involved in the shooting down in Uvalde.
Yes.
And that case, in my understanding, it's not progressing really fast. But I have not heard anything about the shooting in Allen. And it's kind of interesting because probably 20 years ago, I did a case where a young man was walking across the parking lot of a gas station and got shot and ended up with quadriplegic as a result.
Whoa.
Terrible, terrible, terrible case, terrible injuries. And the young man is still alive even today, 20 years later. But, we were able to prove that the security measures of the gas station and convenience store that he was walking across were basically, basically useless. And we're able to get a recovery for him. So it's the Allen, Texas case is a case that we could do something about, but of course, what you're looking at in that kind of case is proving that it's a high crime area and the owner of the shopping center didn't do anything to protect the employees and the customers in that high crime area. I suspect, I don't know for sure, I suspect the statistics are that is not a high crime area, but I could be wrong. I haven't looked at it.
Do you expect to hear soon that cases will be filed against them all?
I think somebody at some point will file one. They're really difficult cases because you have to prove that it's a high crime area. The owner of the shopping center was aware of the fact that it was a high crime area, and they chose to ignore it. Basically, is what you're trying to prove. And
I got you.
Of course, it's an extremely bad case from the perspective of damages. Lots of people, several people lost their lives, several people were injured. But, again, especially with courts in Texas, including the Texas Supreme Court, it's really easy as a lawyer to put a bunch of time and money into that case and it get thrown out on a motion for summary judgment. And then you've got some upset clients and you're out a bunch of time and money. So somebody will get one of those cases and will file it. We'd be happy to co-counsel with them on it.
Yeah.
But it's a really difficult case.
Mark, how do the courts determine, and this could be for anything, not just the shooting, but how do the courts determine what a life is worth?
What a life is worth? Good question. So we have vocational consultants and economists that will tell us what a life is worth from an economic standpoint, but they can't put a dollar value on the the relationships, the families, and their losses. But so what normally in a case like that you would want to know what a person's earnings history has been. What type of job did they have at the time they were killed? How did they how far had they gone in school? And so you're going to hire an economist to go through and in conjunction with a vocational consultant who can tell you about the different jobs this person was qualified to work, and they'll give you a number which is typically reduced to what's called present value. So you can't very easily. You can try, but it's very difficult to put a value on the relationships. But you can get a value on what's the dollars and cents that were lost as a result of the individual not being able to earn an income for their family. Of course, there are variations on that depending upon, was it a very young child? Was it a child still in college, but majoring in medicine, who might have gone on to medical school and had a long life with very high income. So it depends. And, also it is different if the person's 70 years old. So we use vocational consultants and economists to help us put a value on the loss of earning capacity.
I want to go back. We had Jack in Fort Worth. He want to know, what should I do if I fall and injure myself at someone's else's property or business? And then his follow-up was, he wanted to know, won't they just pay for my medical bills since I was hurt on their property? Will they pay for the medical bills?
Yeah, so good question. We hear that a lot. Somebody is injured at a retail establishment or maybe somebody else's home, and they come in and say, this person should pay for my medical bills. And they think, the potential client thinks just because they were injured, their medical bills should be paid. And it just doesn't work that way. It works that way in one instance. And that one instance is if the premises owner has what's called a MedPay provision in their policy. And a MedPay provision will many times pay without regard to whether there was fault on the part of the homeowner. But most of the time, most of these retail establishments don't have a MedPay provision in their policy. So you're, again, having to prove, number one, was there an unreasonably dangerous condition? Number two, did the defendant have notice, either constructive or actual, of the claim? So, if they ask for your medical bills and you give them your medical bills and they pay it, well, good. But usually it just doesn't work that way.
Well, are businesses covered for that?
Well, businesses are definitely covered for premises liability causes of action.
Okay.
I've never seen a premises policy or homeowner's policy that did not provide coverage for that. There typically is an insurance policy that's going to provide coverage, but again, you're going to have to prove an unreasonably dangerous condition and notice.
Had somebody wanted to know several years ago, they had a medical malpractice case, and they wanted to know why there's so many attorneys who do not handle medical malpractice cases.
You can see me chuckling a little bit, Steve. It's probably gallows humor that's causing me to chuckle, because we do medical malpractice. And there are a tremendous number of lawyers that don't do medical malpractice. The reason they don't do medical malpractice is because of the medical malpractice laws that were put into place probably 15 years ago at this point, that gave the medical establishment a break on the backs of all the rest of our rights under the 7th Amendment. But the reason most lawyers don't take it is, number one, the caps that are put on non-economic damages. So
there's a ceiling.
There is a ceiling of $250,000 for damages like emotional distress or pain and suffering. So when you're looking for a medical malpractice case, you're looking for a lot of economic damages, because there's not a cap on economic damages. Economic damages would be things like future medical bills, future lost earnings. So first thing we're looking for is lots of future lost economic damages in the future. Second reason lawyers don't want to take medical malpractice cases is you've got to put a lot of money into the cases. It's not unusual for the lawyer to put in upwards of $50,000 into a medical malpractice case. So, if you're putting $50,000 into a medical malpractice case and you're capped at $250,000 for your non-economic losses, it's a very difficult to get a decent return on investment when, juries could go either way. So, the fact there's a cap on non-economic damages and there's such a large amount of expenses that go into medical malpractice cases is typically why most lawyers don't do it. But we still do it.
So let me give you an example. You go into the doctor, your foot's swollen, and the doctor said, "Oh, you're taking in too much salt." Okay. Then you find out a month later, it wasn't salt. You actually had a major infection that you could lose your leg over. Is that medical malpractice?
Well, the question in medical malpractice cases is, was the medical provider's actions below the standard of care? So it's not whether there was a good result or a bad result. It's whether their actions were below the standard of care and did that result in damages. So the example you've given me is really a good one. And it's a case that, if 3, 4, 5, 6 months later, your foot is healed up and you really didn't have anything other than a few $1,000s in additional medical bills that your insurance company probably paid. Even if it was below the standard of care, it's not a case we're going to take or any other lawyer because your damages aren't big enough. But let's change the scenario just a little bit. Let's say, in fact, your leg did fall off. Your leg had to be amputated as a result of this. And let's say what you did for a living was you worked repairing electrical lines on high power towers. And of course, if you don't have your leg, you can't climb those, you're going to be out of work. So number one, you've got a horrendous injury. Number two, it's a horrendous injury that the average person can understand. You're probably, since you had your leg amputated, you probably have a lot of past medical bills, and you're probably going to have a bunch of future medical bills dealing with amputation and prosthesis over the course of your life if you're a young person. Then on top of that, you're going to be probably on disability, and you're going to be out a lot of income over a bunch of years. So that's, if the leg does actually have to be amputated, the leg actually is lost, that's probably a pretty good case. But if it's just, a case where it could have happened, unfortunately, you can't make a claim on what could have happened. And I'll give you a good example. One of the malpractice cases we did in the last year or so, we had a young lady who had hydrocephalus, which is water on the brain. She was a little bit overweight, so she went in to get bariatric surgery. And when you have hydrocephalus, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll run a shunt, which drains water from your brain to your bladder and actually down into your stomach. And so it drains the fluid off your brain into your stomach. So doctor goes in to operate on her for bariatric surgery. While he's in there, he cuts the tube off that connects her stomach to her brain, and thinks he sticks it back in there, thinks there's enough tube left, cut off a section of tube about 12 inches long, and stitches her back up. A couple days after the surgery, she's very dizzy. A couple weeks after the surgery, she's very dizzy. A couple months after the surgery, she's very dizzy. Finally, she gets to she gets to a neurologist. The neurologist says, we've got to replace the shunt. They go back in. She goes back under brain surgery, has the shunt replaced down into her bladder that the other doctor cut off, and the dizziness stops. So, what's the value of being dizzy for 4 or 5 months? Is it $10,000 or is it?
I don't see how you do it.
Is it 100,000? Is it 200,000? So it's those are the types of issues we deal on a lot of this stuff. Now, if she had passed away and her family was bringing a claim, that would have been a fairly high value claim probably. But the fact that she only had dizziness for a few short months, even though what the doctor did was obviously wrong, difficult case.
Well, one of the things being from Dallas, Mark, I get a news flash, tells me everything that's going on in Dallas. And I just got one just now that they've shut down Love Field. Are you getting really bad weather there?
It sounds like it's getting ready to be really bad weather right outside my window. I mean, especially when we first started the show, I heard a lot of rumbling out there. So I was actually going to mention that, if my camera cuts out in the middle of the show, it's because
we had that happen yesterday because the weather here in Florida has been really bad. There's actually a tropical storm out there that they're watching, but it just came across my screen. The major thunderstorms in Dallas-Fort Worth area, Love Field, getting ready to get shut down.
Yeah.
So we hope everybody does well. I really like this new format. It's really not new because in the past, if someone called, we would give them your phone number. Now we're going to be capturing their questions, and it really gives you, you're going to get all kinds of questions asked of you. And what's so great, Mark, about you is the fact that you are so good at responding and answering the questions.
No, thank you very much. And actually, I got a notice on Facebook today about something that goes right into that. About 5 years ago, I was doing improv on stage at the Dallas Comedy House.
Wow.
I did improv, teaching myself to be better thinking on my feet for about 4 or 5 years. And it was one of the greatest things in the whole world for being a lawyer.
Well, you can sure tell. Let's give everybody your phone number, first of all.
Well, my phone number is 844-UNDERWOOD. That's toll free, 844-UNDERWOOD. And the numbers, if you want the numbers instead of 844-UNDERWOOD, it's 844-863-3796. 844-UNDERWOOD.
Mark, do you see clients on Saturdays?
Or just Monday through Friday? Yes, we do, depending upon what's going on in my life. Obviously, I'm not going to meet with, if I've got a family commitment or something like that, I can't meet with you on a Saturday. But, if, we talk to the person, it sounds like they have a case we're interested in, sure, I'll come in and meet with them on Saturday or Sunday or Wednesday night. We're happy to do that. Interestingly, though, we do a lot of initial meetings nowadays over Zoom.
Zoom, yes, right.
And so, we can do those at a lot more of a convenient time for most of the potential clients.
Well, all I know is I'm glad we have you. People love you. And we will see you again next month with more Ask the Experts.
Well, thanks for having me. Of course, what we might want to do sometime is have them actually come in live.
Hey, we might be able to do that too. That's a great idea.
If we could pull that off, that'd be really, really fun.
Yeah. Yes, Cynthia needs something else to prepare for.
Yeah. Well, hey.
Just kidding.
Steve, thanks for having me on the show again. I appreciate it.
Okay, buddy. Have a good, blessed week.
Yeah, you too.
That's attorney Mark Underwood. He is a personal injury attorney, incredible attorney. And you can go to his website at underwoodlawoffice.com. Our new format with him is we're going to be answering your questions. You can just text me at 954-336-3767. We'll get your questions on. We're going to be out of here. We'll begin, and we'll see you again next week with more Ask the Experts.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Experts show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.